Hi, I'm Liz. Welcome to my channel, Making It Easy with Liz. Today we're going to be making, so sorry that we have to, face mask. Right now we are all in self-isolation. Today is March 30th. It is just going nuts out there. So here's something that you can give to everybody. We all have more fabric than we know what to do with. I'm making a whole pile of them for friends and family. Materials. It fits great. The aluminum wire that I use just forms right to your face. And there we go. So what do you think? I'm styling, eh? So let's go ahead and take a look at the other features of this mask that made me like this particular pattern. Here's why I like this pattern the best. One, it's super easy to make. There are 3 pieces, just 3 pieces, 3 straightforward rectangle pieces to deal with. Super easy. Comes with a pocket in the back to put a filter in. Any non-woven fabric will do. Where this is, where the elastic goes, this is a casing. So you can replace this. So everybody's going on about, elastic doesn't hold up well. Well, don't stitch it into your mask. This makes it so that you can easily replace it. Now, I understand that, that style, people are complaining about that being chafing behind their ears. There's this style where it just goes right over your head and your neck, and that works out really well. But again, elastic, right? So if elastic is hard to find, I bought a 200-yard roll from Amazon. So I'm good to go there. But if you don't want elastic, you can make ties. You can sew up matching ties if you want. This is an old t-shirt. Works out perfect. Again, can be replaced. Or you can just go ahead and stitch your ties right on. And this is just like bias tape, and I just stitched it down, on and down, and there you have that. Here are the materials we're going to need to complete our mask. 100% cotton fabric. This is just quilting cotton, pre-washed and dried and pressed. We don't want to use unwashed fabric because it has sizing in it, and I don't think that's meant to be breathed in. So what you're going to do is we're going to cut. Our main piece is going to be 15 inches by 7.5 inches. If you have a patterned fabric such as these peace signs, this has already been cut. You're going to want to make sure that the front of your design, the right direction of your design is going in this direction, right? So whatever your direction is, you're looking at it, it's the right way. You're gonna lay the short side down on top like that. If you're using scissors and pins, then make yourself a paper pattern piece. If not, rotary cutter and ruler, which is what I prefer. And you can get a lot of layers cut out at one time. You're not hassling with pins and stuff. So we've got that piece. Then we need 2 side pieces, and they too, if it's directional, same thing. Short side is the right way of the direction of the fabric. So these 2 pieces are 4 inches by 2.5 inches. So we need 2 pieces of that. We need 2 pieces of 1/4 inch elastic, 10 inches long for our little ear holders. We have clips. I like clips. You can use pins. We need scissors, a ruler, our wire. Now, my wire is an aluminum wire. It is 14 gauge, I believe, or 1.5 millimeter wide. We need 7 inches of that, because once we finish off the ends, we'll end up with 6.5 inches total. So that is aluminum wire. Needle nose pliers or round nose pliers if you have them, and some wire cutters. This is pretty soft. I think an old pair of scissors will even cut it. This is to finish off the ends of the wire, which I will show you what we're going to do. Also, a 3 by 8.5 inch piece of cardstock, construction paper, an old folder, just something a little thicker than paper. We're going to use this. This is a great hack that I came up with for doing your pleats. It goes really fast. And of course, your sewing machine, your serger, if you want to use a serger, and thread, you know, the usual stuff. Okay, so let's go ahead and we're going to get started. Our first thing to do, of course, is to cut your fabric out. So this is already cut out. And what I'm going to do to this now is you are going to either, with your sewing machine, you're going to zigzag along the shorter edge on either side. I'm going to zigzag that just so it doesn't fray, or serge it. I serge, and you want to put your blade down. We don't want to cut any fabric, so we're just going to serge along the edge of this, or zigzag on your machine. The short sides of our piece of fabric. And I'm using 3 threads with 1 needle because I want to keep that seam under 1/4 inch. Next, I'm going to trim off our threads. Now we're going to fold it right sides together. Make sure it's even. And I'm going to clip, I'm just going to throw a couple of clips on there. You can use pins if you want. I like clips. Now we're going to measure in 1.5 inches from both sides and mark it. Now we're going to go to the sewing machine and we're going to sew, back stitch and sew to our mark, back stitch, and then just lift up your foot, drag it down, start on your next mark, back stitch, come to the end and back stitch. 1/4 inch seam. Now we're going to sew 1/4 inch seam to our mark, back stitch, move up, and do our other side. And I have this on a stitch length of like 2.5, 3. Okay, I'm just going to snip the threads. Okay, so now we're going to turn this way. And we're going to open up our seam and give it a press. If you pull on it like that, it just pops into place. Okay, after we press the seam open, we're going to turn it right side out. Now I am using directional fabric. My pattern has to go a certain way. So this is the front of the mask, right? So we want our peace signs facing the proper direction. So I'm going to turn this over, and just remember the back side of directional fabric will always be upside down. So you'll always know which side you're working on. So I'm going to just take my upper part here, and I'm just going to eyeball about a 1/2 inch and give it a press. Okay, so we're going to be top stitching. We're going to do top stitch right along this edge, the lower edge of our opening, all the way across. And we have to open it up. So this is a little tricky, not a big deal, but just try not to catch the rest of your fabric in there. I've done it twice. That's one time too many. Okay, so I use the edge of the inside of my foot here to gauge, and I'm running that along the edge here so that I can keep it even, and that works out really well for me. I'm changing it to about a 3.5 stitch length for top stitching, and we're going to back stitch, and top stitch. Now we're going to top stitch along this top edge here, again, just like about a 16th of an inch, an 1/8 of an inch if you have to. We're going to top stitch here, and we're just going to do an 1/8 of an inch, like a 16th across the top here, then an 1/8 of an inch down the sides, then we're top stitching the bottom, and that's another 16th of an inch, or 1/8 of an inch, whichever you like, and an 1/8 of an inch on the sides. And the reason why we're going an 1/8 of an inch on the sides is just to hold it together. And in the end, we're going to be doing a 1/4 inch seam on there, and we don't want any previous stitching lines to show through. So we want to keep it less than a 1/4 of an inch. So let's go ahead and do that. Now it's time to insert our wire and stitch it in. If we leave our wire like this, just cut on the ends, that can end up poking through the fabric. So we don't want that. We want to keep it nice and comfortable and not cause any injury to ourselves. So we want to turn the ends of our wire to that. And I'm going to show you how to do that right now. So this is the 14 gauge aluminum wire that I bought on Amazon. As you can see, it's very soft, but it holds its shape. So I really, really like this the best. I couldn't find any other kind of wire, and I just like this whole idea. So what we're going to do is we're going to take if you have needle nose pliers, or if you're like me, I'm a jewelry maker, right? So I have round nose. Round nose is the preferable, but you can use a pair of chain nose or needle nose pliers. And be careful with this, it dents very easily and we don't want to scuff it up. So if you have needle nose, just take it back just a little bit. We're going to just roll it. Like so. And then we're just going to take and pinch it right there, and we're just going to push back on the stem part to make it centered. And just straighten it out. It doesn't have to be pretty. No one's going to see it. It's just to keep that end from poking out. Now if you have round nose, so we're going to do the other side, so I just keep it all on the same side. And with round nose, that, then I can just flip my pliers around like so, and then just bend that back against it. And now we have finished ends. Now if you feel they're wonky and they're not even, just give it a spin until they're both facing the same direction. And you should have 6.5 inches of finished length wire. So the wire is longer than the opening is, and I don't want to bend this up. So I'm just slide it right into the pocket and then work one end up into the corner and bring the other one up through. Like so. Okay, so I've got my wire pushed up to the top here, and now we're going to top stitch the upper part and close that wire in there. And that again is going to be about 1/16 of an inch, just real close to the edge. Okay, wire is in. Now it's time to put the pleats into our mask. This is the inside with our pocket. So we're going to flip it over to the wrong side facing up. And this is where our 3-inch piece of paper comes in. We're going to clip. So we want this, after pleated, we want it 3 inches wide. So this is going to be our guide, and it just falls right into place. I came up with this because I'm too lazy, and I'm going to be making more than one at a time. So I need this to go fast. So we're going to clip both this end, and then we're going to take this end and line it up, make sure it's going on straight. And now clip this end. How easy these pop into place now. We'll get 3 folds. So we're going to do the first one, and I've got my thumbs right here, and we're just going to fold that up. And then we're going to take the other ones, if I can get my finger in there, and this will just pop into place. There we go. And you can work your pleats out. There. And now we're going to clip them on the sides, keep them Look at that. Easy peasy. Now we're just going to go and we're going to press our pleats. Then we're going to sew up the sides. So I'm going to serge my sides. You can sew them up on the sewing machine if you'd like, keeping about 1/8 of an inch, or actually following that same stitch line that you originally did. Just follow that, and that is just going to tack these together. We're still going to put binding where the elastic is going to go inside, and that will sew these permanently together. I gave my pleats a quick press, and now I'm just going to serge up my sides. And you want to make sure that your wire isn't in the way, and that will just push back and forth. So push that out of the way and make sure it's not in the way. I'm going to remove my clips while holding this with my hand, and now we're ready to put on our side pieces and our elastic. So we're going to take the front of the mask and we're going to face that face down, right sides together on our piece of on our side piece here. And we want to make sure this is the front, right? So our pattern is facing the right direction. So we want our fabric piece to also face the right direction. So that would be that way, correct? So we're going to put those right sides together. But I like to do it this way so that I can see how much I have to fold over. And I'm just going to clip that in place. Now this is why I cut mine 4 inches long, because I like having that extra fabric to fold over. I don't like fiddling with a 1/4 inch little piece of fabric that's starting to fray, and we want that butted right up against, right? Now we're going to stitch a 1/4 inch seam, back stitching, both at the beginning and the end on both sides. Make sure your wire is pushed out of the way and not underneath your foot. So this is what we end up with. So I am just going to give this a little press, and we're going to press it away on both sides. then we're going to bring this in and give it a press. Okay, so now we're going to turn in, fold this over and over, and we want this to come just below our seam line there, because when we top stitch the other side, it's going to come up, and we don't want this showing, right? So we're going to bring this kind of like a ½ inch down, and then just bring that down. We want this wide enough to be able for the knot of the elastic to fit through. Now we're ready to put our elastic in. I like to not have to fumble with my elastic afterwards. You're more than welcome to pin the end of the elastic and push it through after you're done stitching, but I'm kind of lazy. So I just lay my elastic in there up against the crease there. Bring this down, and then I clip it in place. Because I'm lazy. I'm always trying to think of the easiest way to get something done. So now I'm going to flip this over, and we are going to top stitch very close to the edge. We're not going to stitch in the ditch. For all of you quilters in there, we're not going to stitch in the ditch because it just looks too messy on the other side, which it's on the inside, but I want to make sure that we catch. We got to make sure we catch this underneath, and it's real easy for it to shift and not go in properly. So I'm going to stitch very, very close to the edge here. Make sure your wire isn't in the way. Make sure your elastic is out of the way. Oops. There we go. Fingers crossed that we caught it. Yes, we did. That looks good. Might not look pretty, but if it's functional. Let me get in there. If your machine can't handle the bulk, you might try a walking foot. It's not too bad. I have an industrial machine, so it kind of freaking goes through everything. And there we go. See how nice that is? We're just going to tie this into an overhand knot. Oh, I tell you, it's no good to try to scrimp on elastic and get this step done. Okay, and we're going to bring our knot as close to the end as we can and tighten it up. And I like to leave these till last after I get the other side done so that I can compare the two sides and make sure that they're even. We don't want one side tighter than the other. And that looks about right. So I'm going to trim this. And we just shift it and stuff that in there. Okay, it's done. Done like dinner. All right. Now, if you want to go ahead and use the circular, the other elastic way, cut about 28 or 30 inches of elastic, and you can feed it through afterwards. You would just feed it up through one side, come around, tie it in a knot, and then stuff the knot in, and then you would end up with a circle. Or you can just lay it like I did, lay it in, clip it, leave the ends undone until you get it stitched, and then tie it in a knot. That's how you would do that way. Cool.